Now, senators in the United States have confirmed Neil Gorsuch as a Supreme Court judge following a year-long political battle over the post. The development is being seen as the biggest success so far for President Trump, who had nominated Gorsuch over Democratic opposition. Mr. Gorsuch will be the 113th Justice of the US Supreme Court. Let's bring you some analysis on this. Sahar Aziz is Professor of Law at Texas A&M School of Law, and she joins us now live from Chicago. Professor Aziz, thank you very much for joining us. Now, we've spoken a bit about the man, but let's talk about the process to choose Justice Scalia's replacement. It became very political, didn't it? Supreme Court justices do say that politics play no role in their job, but they're chosen by the president and then they're confirmed by the Senate, more politicians. So can the Supreme Court be apolitical?
Well, it has now going to be perhaps even more political because the Republicans use what is known as the nuclear option, where they change the rules in the Senate such that it is no longer required to obtain 60 votes from the senators in order to confirm a Supreme Court justice, and instead it is only a majority vote. And that means that the minority party now has essentially no input, or very little input, if at all, into who is confirmed as a justice, and therefore justices will now be viewed as a particular party's judge. So they will be seen as the Republican justice or the Democrats' justice, as opposed to a justice nominated by a particular president of a particular party, but still needing at least 60 votes, which usually requires minority participation because it's very rare that one party will get over 60 representatives in the Senate. At least in recent history, that has been the case.
Understood. What's your particular view on Neil Gorsuch, and how do you think he'll influence the court over time?
There won't be a shift in the court because he is effectively a conservative textualist who follows the originalist jurisprudence, which is what Scalia was. So he is a younger version of Scalia. Some have argued he's even kind of further to the right in terms of his jurisprudence. So you won't have a shift in the leanings of the court. However, if one of the 4 liberal judges retires or passes away under the Trump administration, and in light of the removal of the 60 vote requirement, then the next justice will be a conservative and possibly even further to the right, because the president will no longer feel compelled to nominate what is also often known as a compromise candidate, so someone who is at least perceived or can appear to be more moderate than his or her actual positions. And then at that point, then the court will be right-leaning, and that will fundamentally change Supreme Court jurisprudence and have a very significant impact on law in the United States.
What are the big cases or the big issues which may come to the Supreme Court, which might give us an insight into how Justice Gorsuch will operate?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I'm just wondering what are the big issues that might be coming to the Supreme Court in the near or in the future that might give us an insight into how Justice Gorsuch might rule?
Yes, there are various issues that will be coming up. The one that is of concern to many Americans is the right to abortion, which has been a very long-standing culture war, for lack of a better term, between those who identify as pro-life versus those who identify as pro-choice. And so if it were to come up before the court currently with Gorsuch as confirmed, it likely, well, it's going to depend on the swing vote, which has historically been Stevens. So it could possibly be overturned, Roe v. Wade, but probably unlikely. And other cases that are coming up is possibly another same-sex marriage case, such that Obergefell would be possibly overturned because there's, again, some concerns that whatever progress has been made, particularly on LGBT rights, may not be long-standing.
Sure.
There are many different issues that could come up.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Professor Aziz. That's Sahar Aziz, a professor of law at